You can see that.
I'm a little live, yeah.
Good morning.
Morning.
I am Angela from FRIA, and we are on today. I am on today with the lovely Katie Gula, and I am welcoming you, Katie, to the conversation. We are going to talk about FRIA, and we're both members of the FRIA organization, and
Yes.
we're very excited to share with you exactly what FRIA is. FRIA is a nonprofit whose mission is to support, educate, and empower people to free themselves from the effects of sexual abuse. We support survivors and caregivers using mind-body methods for emotional first aid. If you're joining us live, let us know you're here with a hello, and feel free to post any questions during the interview. So we have just met this week virtually, Katie and I, and what we have in common is that we are both survivors of sexual abuse.
Yes.
And I'm just going to say a lot of other people on the committee are survivors as well. And so that is why we have a passion for showing up on a nonprofit committee like FRIA to support it, getting its message out. So let's see, you have a pretty great story of how you found FRIA, the organization. So I would love for you to share just as much of that story as you would like, and and I'll try to keep an eye on the comments and see if people post, join us and
Okay.
post.
So let's see, it's 2018 now. When I began therapy for my sexual abuse trauma, it was due to repressed memories resurfacing in 2012. And um, I had did traditional therapy for a number of years in support groups and any other organization that could help facilitate my recovery. But then I kind of reached this plateau, and I did not know where else to go or what to do with some of these feelings. I had graduated with my undergrad degree, worked for a marketing agency, and all of a sudden it was winter of 2014, literally January 31st of 2014.
Ah, today is the day.
Today is the day.
Oh,
So
no, I mean, well, March 31st. I'm sorry, but yes, another 31st.
yeah, the 31st. So like the beginning of the new year of 2015.
Yeah.
And I could not, the symptoms of the sexual abuse had pretty much paralyzed me from doing anything in this particular moment, because we all know there's these episodes sometimes. So um, Monday came and I couldn't go to work, and Tuesday came and I couldn't go to work, and Wednesday came and I couldn't go to work. And when I say that, I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, or maybe two people who are not survivors of sexual abuse to get an understanding. When you say you're paralyzed, there's this something that takes over your body and paralyzes you from functioning in your brain, and you get overwhelmed or engulfed with fear. And anybody who knows me personally knows that I like to go to work and I like to function. So this was not a normal episode for me. I'm a very spiritual person throughout my journey. I have learned to facilitate a relationship with a higher power. And I have some very, very special people in my support group who had given me tools this far to use to communicate with that higher power. So I kind of wrote a little note and said, please help me with my symptoms. And I put it in that box, kind of like a prayer box or a God box, people call them. I went and I took my son to daycare, and I came back and I said, by now, I should probably call my boss and let her know why I haven't been to work. So, I get on the phone and I'm nervous and I'm shaking, and obviously I'm still paralyzed in fear, but I had to do something. And I said, I haven't been to work since Monday. And if that doesn't make sense, that's because I was an outside sales account manager, which means I have a territory. I don't have to report anywhere. So it's kind of easy not to go to work. or not people not to know that you're at work. So I call her and I say, I haven't been to work. And she goes, well, why? And I said, oh, I was expecting kind of like an aggressive why. But she said, no, why? And I said, well, because I have PTSD. And she said, oh, well, if you don't mind me asking, what is that from? And I said, sexual abuse. And she goes, oh, well, my mother has been, practicing trauma therapy for over 30 years now. She's got some different kind of methods. And if you're willing to talk to her, I'd be happy to give her contact information. And I was like, ooh, oh, okay, world, kind of one of those synchronized moments that you weren't expecting. And so within an hour or two, I was on the phone with another member of FRIA. And within 20 to 30 minutes of using EFT, I was back out of it. I went to a New Year's Eve party that night. I was fellowshipping with other people that evening. So for my first experience with EFT, was life changing for me because it took me out of a paralyzing moment into a fully functioning human being in the matter of 30 minutes. And that is how I got to FRIA. So of course, for me, I had finally found something that was a tool. I didn't have to wait a week to see my therapist. I didn't have to wait 2 weeks to see the doctor or a month to see the
Right.
doctor or, um, something that I felt a change in my body, in my mind, in my thinking in those very moments. And I was like, oh, I found where I'm supposed to be. And I don't think I found it. I mean, ironically, I think the universe brought that to me.
I was just going to say, that's what I just think it's such a beautiful story because, you know, you made the request for help, even though it was just in a box that, your God box that essentially nobody sees. You made that request for help. And that's one of the important things about moving from victim to survivor, in my opinion, is that for us to become a survivor, we have to learn to ask for help. And once we learn to ask for help, it gets easier and easier because it's one of the hardest things, right? To
Mm-hmm.
ask for help,
Yeah.
for a lot of layered reasons. There's all the times that we wanted to ask for help when we were younger and we couldn't, or maybe we did and it wasn't heard or it wasn't responded to. And then in addition to just the human condition of, I can do this all on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's what I love about your story is that it was this, plea. And I've got numerous stories in my own healing experience that when I asked for help, then help arrived in an unexpected way. And it was always the perfect thing. It was always the perfect thing. So that's why I really wanted you to share your story. So I'm so grateful that you shared so much of that. And in fact, the person that you were connected with that day was Robin, the founder of FRIA. And that's who I'm going to be interviewing next week, a week from today. She's going to be the guest on our show. So I'm really excited
Yeah.
to be in the midst of this. So is tapping your favorite tool, or have you explored the other tools that are in the FRIA toolbox? And is there any others that you really like that you want to talk about?
I would say that EFT is my favorite tool and the tool that I use the most. At that point, like I said, I did a lot of talk therapy and I had some of the memories resurface, but there is so much more details in the pudding or whatever they say that for me didn't just relate to the incident itself, but it affected my daily life. It was like an octopus with tentacles. It like affected so much of my life that I didn't realize
Yeah.
that I was in this, my own little fear world, and how I communicated in relationships. So EFT is my favorite because and usually the only one I use, I mean, I do other meditations. I'm involved in Kung Fu. So, and there's that right brain, left brain repair thing going on. But every week I meet with another member of FRIA and we work on more and more. Like we dig pretty deep to get to those core issues and those core beliefs. aspects, to reduce the stress levels of those aspects. Because, like I said, it wasn't just that one particular incident that has affected it, but how that incident has impacted the rest of my engagements in life. So I am still in the process of recovery. I still work every Tuesday, 8 p.m. I'm on, we're doing tapping. I journal. Journaling is all, I would say that is my other technique. That's a personal technique that I use a lot. Because for me, holding that in, I was so young that I didn't know I was holding it in, but that just became my coping technique. I hold things in,
Yeah.
and don't even realize that they need to come out or they need to be said, or I don't process things in real time. So something happens and then I don't respond until 6 months later or so. Um, yeah, I would say the two tools that I use the most: EFT, journaling. Um, Sometimes I play around with the guitar back there. Um, but anything that kind of gets those hemispheres going together.
And actually, there's a really great video on music that is floating around there somewhere in Facebook land, talking about the particular parts of the brain that become activated when we learn music.
Mm.
And when we play music, and they're different parts of the brain than what we would do in talk therapy or in a lot of other healing modalities. So music is actually very healing, and that's something that you and I both have in common. I have a guitar, but I haven't played it in forever, so I don't consider myself well versed in it. But going and attending music and dance, that's my social, that's my spiritual outings, and that's what I do for fun. That's what I do for healing, and it's very nourishing to the heart. And so that's what we have in common, as we both use music. And so on that note, the trauma tapping therapy is very similar to emotional freedom technique. And I know that you're certified in that.
Yeah.
And what I love about their videos is that they have put some of their tapping to music. Have you seen those videos?
Not yet, but I'm excited to learn that.
Well, they're in a bunch of languages that I don't know, because they've done that in different countries when language has been a barrier, and when music is so, in a lot of other cultures, music is much more prevalent in their day-to-day life. And so putting the tapping to music helped people remember the tapping points. And
Oh,
so that's what
yeah.
I love about it. Yeah,
Remember seeing one video during training where they did music to tapping to teach them the tapping points. Yes, I do remember that.
that's right.
I,
Yes,
the plethora of avenues you could use there with that. Oh, that's a.
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I am just really excited. So let's talk a little bit more about FRIA and what the resources are that are on the website. I'm fairly well versed with that website now. I've been over it quite a bit, and probably my favorite part is the videos and the handouts with all of the different tools. There are so many different tools.
I have to be honest with you. There's so many different tools that I might I might not know all of them. Uh,
Yeah, I think I counted them up, and there's 18 different tools. And so I know I couldn't go list them off very quickly. And a lot of them are from energy medicine.
mhm.
And they're just simply, things like the butterfly hold is the one that I remember. And that's a really good calming technique,
Yeah.
just to be able to, once we can embrace ourselves, it's a grounding feeling to be able to do that. So yeah, and so we could do a little bit of tapping
Okay.
if we wanted to demonstrate what tapping is, or emotional freedom technique, or trauma tapping technique. There's three different lovely names that it can go under. So do you want to lead us in a little round of tapping, and just talking about the points? We don't need to put any other words to it.
Yes. We could do the EFT points, and and this is, I guess, educational for people who out there who have never done it before. But
That's
there's the
right.
crown, the top of the head, um, which is, can you see it on the video?
Yep, we can.
And then between the eyes,
Yep.
and I usually use three fingers, and sometimes if you're not sure if you're hitting the point correctly, it's a good time to check inside your body and
Hmm.
just feel. Because if you tap somewhere that's not one of the points, you're not going to feel the release as much, and it's kind of that funny feeling in your body. And then there's the side of the eyes, and then there's under the eyes, which these acupuncture points I've learned are hollows in your body.
Hollows. I haven't heard that phrase before.
Um, yeah, little hollows that release energy points, and that's how the energy acupuncture came about. And
Okay.
learned from the trainings. And then under the nose, and this one I usually use with two fingers, and on the chin and collarbone. And if you're watching and you're following along with this, maybe just check inside your body, and you're not maybe not working on an issue right now, but even just tapping on yourself can bring you a calming relief feeling.
Yeah, I think the biggest hang up I hear from people is they don't know what to say. And so lately I've been telling them just do it in silence. If you just start and do it in silence, you should feel a sense of calm and peace come over, and then the words might start to flow.
Mm-hmm. And karate chop, I've also learned you can do it this way
Hmm.
as well, or you can tap this way
Okay. Yeah.
with two fingers right here. There's also other points that I can't really. I've learned some other ones along the way that I won't be able to show you on the video, or maybe save those for next time. But
Yeah. There are so many points. And so sometimes when I'm working with somebody, we'll do a full on and we'll do every single point just because I want them to feel that tapping in their body.
mhm.
But, um, but for if we don't need to go, really as deep, or we don't have much, we have time constraints. The points you just showed us are perfect. And
Okay.
I love that. That's a shortcut that I forget about. It's hitting both karate chop points at the same
Mhm.
time. So beautiful.
And a lot of times during my personal sessions, you'll figure out what kind of works for you. I love doing a full round, but I also, there's the rocking technique that, for me personally, some people don't like to rock, but this very much so centers me, and I can feel an integration for myself happening when I'm doing rocking, or when I'm doing both the chopping and the rocking, or holding myself and embracing myself and rocking, as if I'm nurturing that inner child inside.
Yes, yes. I'm a rocker also. And it's so interesting in the circles that I'm in, whenever we have a sit down where we sing and we're sitting down, I'm usually rocking at the same time. And so after when we get up and have a break, somebody will come across a room and say, of course you're another rocker, I rock too. There's just a handful of us that do it because it is something that I find very nurturing and very comforting. So that's beautiful that you pointed that out as a great tool. And I don't think the rocking is one of the tools on our videos series. We might have to add that to our video series. So there's also printed handouts that have great descriptions to detail how to do the techniques. And so that's another thing I wanted to point out. We'll put links to that in the video text when we're done. But I think so. The other thing that I would like to talk about is how you really emphasized this in your story about how you discovered tapping with Robin, and that was that you felt empowered. You didn't have to wait a week to go to your therapist. And that's the other thing that I think that helps us move into survivor and actually thriver mode, is because we feel self-empowered, because so much of our recovery is about regaining our voice, regaining our sense of self, and regaining our sense of choice. So in what way, I mean, how do you think that that's impacted you? Do
Okay.
you
There's, how do I explain this? You, for my experience, I told you before when we met, there's this before memory, after memory kind of like time in my life, who I was before and who I am now, that I know all of these things. And there was this debilitating, I learned all these memories. Okay, now you're diagnosed with PTSD and you're in therapy, and, everything that I knew about myself was not a lie, but not true. Everything now about myself is totally different. Now I've got all of these symptoms I have never dealt with before. How do I be a fully functioning human being in society with all of these things, all of these symptoms, and at the time I took FMLA, and these are things that impact your functioning in society. And I'm going to be honest, I did not find that very fair. At the time.
yes,
I did not find
yes,
it fair, because I am a person of, I like to succeed, and, I had goals and hopes and dreams, and now I have these symptoms that are impacting me at work and in my social life and in my life with my children, and symptoms that some people would say, well, maybe you should go on disability, or maybe you should, and that was just not my hope or dream for my life,
right.
So
Yep.
these tools gave me the opportunity to, I explained it one time, like, if I wake up and I feel like I'm in a bad mood, I'm still going to walk to the kitchen sink and I'm going to make my pot of coffee in the morning. If I'm in a good mood or a bad mood, or if I'm having anxiety or depression, no matter what, my body is still going to get up. My body's still going to go to the coffee machine and it's going to make coffee regardless of what's going on the inside. I'm still going to get in the car and go to work, So I explained it like this. I said, so it seems like there's this higher self that's just dragging my butt around this world, no matter what I'm thinking, feeling, or doing. But these tools gave me the ability, or they gave me the choice of what to do with those feelings and thoughts on the inside. So even if I don't have 20 minutes at work to sit down and I'm feeling, a lot of anxiety, and I'm at work and I can't go take a break for 20 minutes, I can go take a ride in the elevator down, when I'm in the elevator at work, I can go down the elevator and I can do some tapping.
Yep.
There's these minutes throughout the day, and no, it's not like a magic pill that I take and all day long I'm sedated or whatever, but there are these things that I can do throughout the day to manage these symptoms so that I can function as a human being in society without affecting my life and my children's life, because that's not fair to them either.
Right. Yes. I think that that's one of the best ways to talk about how recovery is a minute by minute process.
Mm-hmm.
And doing something like drinking that cup of coffee or doing that tapping session first thing in the morning, that doesn't mean that we're going to have smooth sailing all day. It means that that's how we're choosing to begin the day, and that by lunchtime we might need to take a little bathroom break. That the bathroom is where I would hide at work when I was in the corporate environment.
Right.
And I would run into the bathroom and I would do a few minutes of tapping in the bathroom. And that was, it's just my self-rescue, my being able to breathe calmly again so that I can go out and work more productively and do a better job in my
Mm-hmm.
in my work environment, and relate to people in a healthier way rather than coming from a place of fear or anxiety. And I think that, you know, So both of us, that's the other thing we have in common, is that it was repressed memories that came out at a particular, for me, it was age 42, and for you, it was age 29. And so we have that contrast. We have who we were before and who we were after. And for me, and I don't hear this quite as much from you, but for me, I think I was very much, it had my symptoms of post-traumatic stress. In fact, I'd been diagnosed with it 20 years earlier when I was in therapy. So I was diagnosed with it, but we didn't know why I had it. Nothing really explained why I had complex PTSD until my memories came out at age 42. So I actually tracked down that therapist and said, "You were right." There was some stuff back there. And so it was really it's been a long and yet a short journey. And I think that the energy medicine and the emotional freedom technique have helped me manage it and helped it move along faster in the healing process, I guess. That's my...
And for me, I think that the energy medicine has really touched these issues at the core.
Yeah,
And the longer that you're doing the EFT, the more aware you can feel that negative, distressed energy in your body. Like I can feel it come up my spine, down my feet. So, and then, and then you get to these clearing feelings, and you can actually feel in your body this energy flow, or where you have a negative kink, or where it's at, because the more trained I become, I'm learning the different areas of the body that this energy can store. I had stomach issues, somatic stomach issues, for the longest time, that we ended up finding out there were some physical ailments, and a lot of my stress I hold down here. But,
yes,
and how do I manage that? How do I not hold it down there? How do I not hold my breath and keep it in?
yeah.
And using these techniques to let that flow.
Yeah, I think the other thing that that we also have in common, and we talked about this the other day when we did a little conversation, is our intentions. And setting up those intentions are such an important part of it. So when we journal, for instance, my intention is to be able to, put all of that down on paper so that I don't have to hold it inside anymore. And you said that description very well, that you had held these things inside. And so that's one way to be able to self-express. But also, for me, it's the intention of letting it go so I don't have to hold it in my brain or in my body anymore. And so that's, I think that intention also helps us move through things faster.
And the other part I'll add to that is not only the intention, but for me, I am my biggest critic, my biggest guilt tripper, feeling bad about anything that I think or feel or do. So allowing those to come out, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent,
Yeah,
maybe what I'm thinking or feeling isn't the truth or whatever, but just allowing it to be what I feel, to come out, and because it's with, myself, or with me and the person that I'm working with, it's not like, it's not being judged. It's not being criticized. This is just what I'm feeling, and allowing
right.
myself to be okay with what I'm thinking or feeling.
Yeah, for me, that foundational phrase, and I didn't share this with you the other day, but the very first time that I did EFT, let's see, probably about 13 or 14 years ago now, I was working, so the practitioner I was working with is from India, and so she's got this beautiful, lovely accent, and that I had a hard time understanding. And the first time that she had me repeat after her, "I deeply and profoundly love and accept myself," I was in the midst of a sobbing, crying wreck, and I stopped crying and my jaw hung open. And I said, "You want me to say what?" And she said the phrase again, and I just looked at her and said, I can't say that. There's no way. And so the whole session turned around from my work situation that I was all in a hot mess about, to being able for me to say that phrase, and it was one syllable at a time that she pulled it out of me amidst, again, a bunch of sobs, and I was just an emotional mess. And so I would say if from on a scale of 1 to 10 on how much I loved and accepted myself in that very first session, I would say I was a -50.
Yeah.
My self-loathing, my self-hate, I despised I didn't like anything about myself. So that was the work. And I think that that's, essentially that is the work that we're doing no matter what tool we use. Talk therapy, journaling, music, emotional freedom technique. That's the work. We become into a place of love and acceptance with ourselves rather than overly critical, because we're so good at that, right? Yeah.
I do remember the first time I said those words too.
Yeah.
Hard. And I can remember, so, baby steps. And I can remember the first time I felt this much of love and acceptance. For me, I have responses that are very physical.
Yeah.
I actually vomited when I had
Wow.
this much of love and acceptance for myself. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's how deeply rooted the effects of this trauma can be in your
That's
body.
right. That's right.
Um, yeah. So,
I
and
think,
some,
go ahead.
I can't remember.
Okay. I think that's probably one of the most important aspects of my healing is that well, for me, from the very beginning, it was a very somatic experience, a very body-based experience. And that is the other part of this that's why I love emotional freedom technique, is because it's not only a verbal experience, because we can talk out loud the flotsam and the garbage that's rolling around in our head, the inner critic, we can, just tap that all out of our body, but it's also a physical experience in addition to emotional experience. And when we can bring all of that into a congruent healing modality, to me, that's what makes it such a powerful aspect, because we are honoring the body. Traditional talk therapy does not honor the body. It doesn't bring the body into the process. Art therapy was another body-based experience for me, actually, because it was all about putting what I felt on paper with a medium that was comfortable for me.
Right.
And so that art therapy was huge. I also have done trauma yoga therapy, and
Mm,
that was huge and so profound. Um, and so there are so many different things, but trauma yoga, I can't drop down and do that at any particular point. Art therapy, I don't carry the art tools with me, but I
right.
always have my fingertips with me.
Always
And
fingered.
yeah,
And when I learned that, the more EFT that I learned, when I learned that these somatic symptoms in my body were actually um, acknowledged things going on in my body, there was this relief that I had because, yeah, I felt, well, if these are not real, then why am I feeling them?
that's
uh,
right. And
and so, just the relief to know, they are not physical things that can be found on an MRI or in a medical sense, but they are still things that are happening in my body that I'm feeling. They are actually there,
yeah,
you know, me this relief, and that somewhere out there was hope to get relief from those symptoms. I used to get debilitating stomach pain, and it was
yeah,
like, oh, I could find relief finally,
yeah.
So,
For me, it
I,
was migraines. I had, I've got digestive issues as well, which is a very common symptom across the board of survivors. But for me, it was migraines that were incredibly debilitating.
mm,
So, and it was trapped energy. It was the trapped, trying to hold things in that needed to find expression, needed to find their way out. So, I don't have I have hardly any headaches anymore. So that I used to have 3 to 5 a month, and I
oh,
would be down and out for anywhere from 7 to 10 days every single month.
wow.
Yeah. So my kids have a ton of memories of a darkened room and mom in bed, and We got to be quiet. And uh, so that was my way of trapping that and holding that in my body. So it's been so freeing. I haven't had those migraines. I got rid of the migraines actually before my memories came out.
Wow.
I went to acupuncture and did a bunch of work in acupuncture. So I think the last thing that I wanted to point out was that trauma has us leaving our body, and tapping is a way to bring us into our body, as are all of the techniques that are listed on the FRIA website. They all have us connecting and coming back into our body and helping us be grounded and centered. And that stress response being interrupted is really what can help us move forward and be more confident
Yeah.
and express some of that self-love and acceptance that we've talked about. So,
Yes.
all right,
Oh,
Katie, is there anything else that you'd like to say? In fact, my final question is, if well, I'll give you the opportunity to say anything else you'd like to say, and then I have a final question. Let's do
okay.
that.
I do want to say, people that are coming in new members of or not new to emotional freedom technique. I know that for a lot of survivors that there's a lot of fear in new techniques or newly talking about it. I do like to share that, as you mentioned when you were doing acupuncture for your migraines, I'm sure you didn't talk about your trauma story while you were doing that. So there's opportunity for these traumatic events to leave the body without having to, describe every detail and go into it's working with emotions surrounding that. And I wanted to say that to them so that, to alleviate some of the fear of like, no, we don't need you to go to every detail. We really are working on the energy leaving the body.
That's
Um,
right.
and no, and I've never had to say every, you know, every
Hmm.
little detail of that event. That this is more for that self acceptance, self love, and to bring ourselves back into our bodies.
That's a very good point to have, that we're just working with the emotional impact. We're not necessarily needing to go back into those stories. In my healing, in the very early days of it, I set up a list of intentions because of the memories coming out, and I was, I just could see myself being somewhat overwhelmed by them. So I wrote up some intentions, and the very first one was that I only remember what I had to remember to be able to clear it and heal it. Um, because then I felt like, okay, if it's coming up, then I know that it's because A, I feel like I'm capable of clearing it, and B, it's because it's important. And so I have lots of partial storylines, and I'm okay with a partial storyline. I'm okay with a partial memory. And it's, to me, that's the important part, is that we set up something that helps us feel safe in working through our trauma.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about um, the emotional freedom technique and the trauma tapping technique, is because in both of those instances, you don't have to go in and excavate, and really you can just work with the emotions that are present and reducing your response and interrupting that response. So
Yeah.
perfect. So what would you say to somebody that is in pain right now from a trauma that's a long time ago, or a trauma that's more recent? Maybe their Me Too moment has, because we have this collective Me Too movement happening, maybe they're starting to look at things differently. And what would you say to somebody who's experiencing some anxiety or some pain right now?
The first part that I want them to know is there are many, many, many people that are here to love and support you through this. Just go to the website, ask for help, find some love and support to help facilitate you through this, because it's out there. And the "you are not alone" statement, that's the first thing, because I know that for me, I felt isolated at first. My story's a little different because I already had a support group set up prior to my memories coming back, but that was so I had people to go to. So if I were somebody who did not have any support, I would suggest that they get on the FRIA website. There's lots of information on there that they can find support around them, and just connect with people that can support and love and facilitate you through your experience, because you don't have to hold this in forever, and you don't have to debilitate yourself, or your life is supposed to be thriving. We don't have to live in the dark rooms anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, with that, I think we will wrap up. And I just want to say thank you to the few people that have been on this morning watching us and giving us some love. And I will post this on our YouTube channel as well. And it's going to go down in the archives for FRIA
All
as
right.
the very first interview. So thank you. Thank you, Katie, for showing up and sharing your story so beautifully. The last thing that I'll point out to anybody who's tuning in that is a survivor is that we have a survivors forum on the FRIA website. And so if you find, go to that page, again, something else I'll link to in there, and you can go in and post questions. And there's several of us that will be moderating in there, from survivors to therapists and, tapping experts or emotional freedom technique experts. So, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell as much or as little of your story as you'd like, but it's there as a support system,
Absolutely.
that you can realize that you're not alone, that there's others that have already done this work, and so we're just it's an invitation to join the FRIA forum. Yeah,
And on that forum, you can be anonymous or you can say who you really are. Either way, there's a place that you can express yourself and get the support that you need.
that's right. All right. Well, thank you, Katie. Have a great, blessed day.
All
Mwah.
right. Thank you. You as well.
All right. Bye-bye.